Hi handsome and welcome to my 39th video. This time we are doing a double whammy and a sequel to my previous video on Elvia orcs, because much like the dwarves in Moria, I dug too deep. Let's talk about the inaccuracies of Garmoth.com and how you most likely make less money than it tells you. I was inspired to make this video during my research for the previous one that I made that had to do with Elvia orcs, and the idea that the numbers you see on Garmoth or that people allegedly make are fake, or at the very least they are very inflated, since the numbers reported for the shards are at best very outdated and at worst actively deceitful. This video will be split into 3 parts. First, we will talk about averages and that not every average is made equal. Then we will look into items that actively inflate your money per hour, whether you like it or not. And finally, we will talk about the infinite potions and their evaluation on the market. For complete disclaimer, all market data outside of the EU server will be provided by bdolytics.com, and all grind data will be provided by Garmoth.com, our main culprit of this video, using unspecified class at 300% drop rate using a yellow loot scroll. One more thing before we get into it, even if this might look like it, the video is not meant to be ammunition for the discourse of OMG, Garmoth numbers are fake, don't use the Garmoth site, my numbers are way better and way more accurate. I have said the same thing in the Elvia Orcs video, and I think it bears repeating. Until we get first-party tracking software or an add-on made by Parlabase themselves that has access to actual player data, Garmoth is the best source of information when it comes to silver per hour that we have. Yes, your own data is going to be more accurate, but it is going to be more accurate to you and you only. Just because you make 2 billion silver an hour at the spot doesn't magically make the spot 2 billion silver per hour for everyone. There are many things that go into this, such as class, gameplay, gear, etc, 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 and I think that everyone kind of knows that the numbers at Garmoth are supposed to be more of an indicator and not a hard number that you really follow. Also, if by some miracle someone from Garmoth staff is watching this video is not here to just bash your site. I obviously personally use the site as well, and I don't have the backend access to the numbers that you guys have and that you guys put into it. I'm just here to point out that the numbers are wrong. With what limited resources I have, even I can see that, okay? This is a video that is here to provide the best possible information to the player, not a video that is supposed to tell you that you should not trust Garmoth.com, etc, etc, okay? With that long disclaimer out of the way, let's get into it and start with the easiest to explain part of the video. The idea that the average silver per hour is off because of a very rare and very expensive item or items that drop at these zones. I will use 2 zones to illustrate this point: Israel Highlands and the newly rebooted Darkseeker's Retreat. Both of these spots can drop the Cabo artifact as well as the Flame of Resonance, with Darkseekers also dropping the Origin of Dark Hunger. All of this is well and good until you go to Garmoth and realize that all of these items are added to the average hour at these zones. This leads to an almost 300 million an hour discrepancy between the average reported by Garmoth.com and the average that you are most likely going to have if you go there and grind it for an hour. Well, you might think that this is fine if it's just a handful of spots, but it really isn't that small a number. Obviously, all the other flame spots suffer from the same issue as well, but they are not the only ones either. The infinite potion spots, which we will get to, also count the full potion piece into your average hour. Elvia Calpheon spots count the Blessed Soul fragment needed for the Belhar upgrade. The Land of the Morning Light new spots also count the Bone Crystals. Dekia 2 Odlands and Ash Forest are also like this with their Dekia artifacts, and if you really want to go into extremes, you can even count items such as the Iridescent Lightstones from Mountain of Eternal Winter, and there is even an argument to be made for items such as the Boreka accessories, since Garmoth uses decimal numbers to denote average amount of items per hour, but as both of us probably already know, you can't drop half of a Deboreka necklace. I would say that this is a matter of perspective. More specifically, it depends on the definition you apply to the word average. If you think of the mathematical definition, the argument you are probably already typing in the comment section right now is something along the lines of, if I grind at a spot for 100 hours, I will for sure get the item, so it will be my average. To which I would say that you are not wrong. But you need to keep in mind that for every guy who drops a flame in the first hour, there is a guy who takes several hundred hours to get it, and he might never get it in the first place. And there is also the idea that using a logic like this and using this definition of average, a person who drops the flame in their first hour would land at an average north of 11 billion silver an hour, which I think that we can all agree on not being the actual average. The other definition, the one that I would personally use, would be the non-mathematical one, denoting something that is typical or usual. The aforementioned first hour with a flame is by all accounts unusual. Therefore, it should not be considered an quote-unquote average hour, at least not in my opinion. That being said, the only place where this really influences the average silver in a substantial way are the Ulukita flame spots, as well as the infinite potion spots. Most places are only off by maybe 100 or 200 million, and in the case of Elvia Calpheon spot, it's often less than 10 million, so most of the time it really doesn't matter. If you feel that an item with the same drop rate as a treasure item piece should still count towards the average silver per hour because you plan on grinding a spot for an extremely prolonged amount of time, be my guest and keep it in. What matters to me slightly more are items that only serve the purpose of inflating your Garmoth.com silver per hour, but if you go into game, you won't actually have it. I'm of course talking about items that you can't easily sell, or in some cases items that might as well be impossible to sell at all. If we look at items that are literally impossible to sell because they can't be listed on the central market, we have the Elvia Cup shards, as well as the reoccurring infinite potion pieces and pities, as well as a handful of other items that don't really matter, such as the Masters of Pure Magic. Since I already made a video on the shards and I will be talking about the infinite potion pieces, I will skip this for now. What is more interesting for me right now are the items that might as well be impossible to sell, because there are simply way too many of them on the market. This will heavily depend on your server, but to name a few examples, you have the Elvia Calpheon's Corrupted Breaths and Scorching Sun shards, almost every low-level yellow accessory, both imperfect and purified lightstones, crystals from the Kia 2 zones, and especially on EU, the aforementioned Origins of Dark Hunger, both the regular and faint variant, as well as the essences. Now yes, you might be able to sell a couple of these items every now and then, and the items do have value on their own, but even then, it's not going to be easy, and you're not going to see the silver anytime soon. In some cases, we are once again talking about a very small amount of silver that you might be inflated by, but in cases such as the Origins and the essences, it's a matter of hundreds of millions, if not billions of silver. The question of the day then becomes, what do we do with these items? They are in a sort of a limbo, a Schrodinger's item if you will, where they simultaneously have none of its assigned value and all of its assigned value, all depending on your RNG when selling them. I would say that the Faint Origins really are the biggest victims of this, where you now have less of a chance to sell one on the EU server in a given day than you would have tapping a Pen Black Star. I don't really know how to take these items, to be honest. On one hand, saying that these items have no value at all is a bit disingenuous, but at the same time, acting like you make more silver per hour when you count things that will sit inside your central market listings for months, if not forever, also doesn't sit right with me. In a way, this situation is very similar to what we were talking about during the first problem, just flip upside down. Instead of having an insanely low chance of obtaining these items, you have an insanely low chance of selling them. Perhaps we should then treat it the same way as those items, and just leave the decision to count them to the given player. However, this would have the unfortunate effect of two people making wildly different numbers simply because they have different methods of counting their silver per hour. So maybe keeping the way it is the way to go. Regardless, it is something to think about, and in my opinion, it is better not to lie to ourselves about how much we make when the silver can never appear in our wallets. Finally, let's talk about the infinite potions. I have not talked about them in the LVRX video, and I am talking about them at the end here because they really suffer from all the other problems listed. That being, their average silver per hour is skewed upwards because it counts the full piece into the average hour. The pities and even the full pieces are unsellable on the central market on their own, and you need to complete the potion to be able to get the money. And on top of both of these problems, they also suffer from the problem that the Serendia Elvia shards do, where the reported numbers on Garmoth.com is not accurate to what the reality is. Once again, I have some numbers to prove this. Here are the prices for both the HP potion and the Mana Infinite potion on the 4 major servers. Here is how much a pity and a full infinite potion piece cost according to Garmoth on these same servers, and as you can see, putting these next to each other, we have a difference of upwards of 3 billion silver, meaning that your numbers will be of more than anywhere else. Now, to many of you this is not a surprise. Everyone already kind of knew that the potion spots are not exactly lucrative. Still, to see that it's even worse than you thought is just sad. The weirdest part of all of this is how Atani's elements are calculated. By what I really mean, that I have absolutely zero clue at all as to how Garmoth.com calculates the price of Atani's elements. The way I thought it would be, and really the way it kind of should be calculated, is to just copy the price of the more expensive pity piece, meaning the mana potion pity, and give the Atanis the highest possible value. But to my surprise, not only does Atanis not copy the mana potion pity price, it doesn't copy the HP potion price either. It's not even an average of those two costs. Instead, the Atanis element on Garmoth sits somewhere in between the HP and MP potion price with its own kind of average, but not really. I almost want to say it's an arbitrary price, and it doesn't really have a connection to anything else. This way, it is actually closer to the real price of the MP potion on the center market. But at the same time, it still isn't entirely accurate, being off by about 1 to 2 billion silver at the time of making this video. I have to simply believe that just like the shark prices in Elvia Serendia zones, the price of Atanis and the price of pities as well have been manually set and never really updated. If someone knows the real reason or has a better idea why this is, please let me know in the comments. All of this combined then leads me to the question you might already be asking yourselves. How can you fix these issues, and what is the actual adjusted average silver for these spots? Well, thankfully Garmoth.com allows you to set your own price for items. All you need to do is go to the custom price tab, write down the item you want and set the price you want for it too. And if you're wondering what items I would recommend to set with what prices, here is a short table with all items that I could think of, as well as the price I would use myself. Keep in mind that I play on the EU server, so if you are on a different server or if you are watching this from the future, this might not be as accurate as it is now. And even now it is not like 100% accurate. For an even more visual representation of what these adjusted hours look like, here is the unaltered Garmoth compared to the adjusted one. You can see that the differences are staggering in some places. Again, these items most of the time do have value, and I am not telling you that you should not grind at these spots. I am just trying to illustrate that if you consider all the possible obstacles along the way that determine whether you get the promised silver or not, the idea of making an XYZ amount of silver per hour really isn't as black and white, and it is something to consider the next time you decide to go grind at a spot based on the numbers Garmoth gives you. And that is it for today, handsome. I hope you enjoyed the video. I feel like I have to once again clarify that this is not a slight at the Garmoth website or the staff working on it. The video is purely informative and aims to give the best possible advice to the player when tracking their hours. I also have one more announcement to end on. If you guys want to watch the Calpheon Ball next Saturday with me, I will be streaming it as well as my reaction to it on twitch.tv/LuneyeVDO. We also have some bingo cards ready to go, so it will be more than just yelling, "Oh my god!" and "I can't believe it!" And if that's something you're interested in, or if you just want to see more of me in a live format, feel free to check me out there. With that being said, remember to like and subscribe, do tell me what you think of Garmoth averages or if I made some mistakes in the video, and enjoy your grind!